Welcome to a live episode of the Miami Heat Roundtable. My name is Amir. For today's episode, we have Martel. You can find him at the Miami Heat Zone podcast. We also have Trent joining us. As usual, you can find him at the Miami Heat Network. And then we have a special guest, once again, joining the podcast. I think for the third time, we have Will Manso. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm good. Wait, we're live? No, forget it. I don't want to do this live. No, I'm just kidding. No, live is good. I'm good, man. I'm, middle of the long season. We're getting the stretch run with the Heat and see where things go.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy man, so we'll keep it short. But the last time you joined us was 6 months ago. So this was during the off season. It was right before training camp.
Okay.
And so we talked and projected how the Heat would do, and I think we're all incorrect at this point. But we mainly talked about Jimmy Butler and his extension. So we knew that on July 7th, he was going to ask for his extension, and he did ask for it. I don't think it was exactly on July 7th, but obviously Pat Riley, denied that and said, we're going to take a wait and see approach, see what happens this season. And a lot has happened, as we know, since that last conversation. And we finally have the answer of what Jimmy's future would be. But my first question to you, Will, is how do you feel about the whole Jimmy Butler trade and how it went down? And the second part is, do you think Miami Heat got fair value for the trade?
I mean, both good questions. With the Jimmy stuff, it's strange because I tried to avoid talking a lot of Jimmy because it was just, it was such a big drama, man. And it was so drawn out for everybody, for fans, for you guys with the podcast, on TV, on the broadcast. I mean, it was a long process of a lot of stuff being said, right? So with the Jimmy stuff, when I look back on it, I don't know if I said it to you guys. I may have 6 months ago, but I certainly had said it to others, and I said it on Channel 10 before many times, is that I went into this season thinking this was Jimmy's last season in a Heat uniform. I thought once, you get to the point of not getting the extension and, telling Jimmy he's got to be available and all these things, I think it was clear where this was going. So it didn't surprise me one bit. I just think his welcome had kind of been worn out here, and I think all good things come to an end, and Jimmy's run was great here, but we all know how every situation with Jimmy ends. I mean, it just does, and that's a fact. It's not even a knock. It's not even like trying to say Jimmy's a bad guy. It's just at some point, I think relationships sour with him, and it turned that way. So when you talk about the end of it, it wasn't surprising that it happened. It stinks the way it happened. All the lack of joy, the press conferences, the suspensions. I mean, it got ugly, guys. It should not have gotten that ugly. When you talk about the return, you're in a spot where you have to trade a guy like that, and you know that his value is probably not very high. Number one, because of the stuff he was doing. Number two is because he wants a brand new, really big money contract. You're going to have limited options. So the fact that they found Golden State to take him and get a player of Andrew Wiggins' caliber, and then also get a player like Davion Mitchell in that mix of trades as well, who's been a really nice fit for Miami at the point guard position, I don't think you could say they could have done much better than that given the circumstances.
Definitely. What's going on, Will Manso? So this season's very, very interesting. And you was talking about Spo before the stream started. And I kind of got two parts for you. We all seen last night's game.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Spo's, how he's been doing this, like his job so far this year? And also, how do you feel about Terry Rozier's future with this Miami Heat team? I mean, I feel like the writing's on the wall, but anything can happen in the NBA because obviously he still has a year left after this. And so, yeah, that would be like the first question that I have for you.
Yeah, and I think this question from Heat fans, right? I think that people have been asking that left and right. I'll start with Spo. Look, I think it's okay. I think sometimes we get caught up because Spo is such a great coach, because he's done so many great things, because he's considered literally by his peers as the best coach in the NBA. I think people think that if you criticize Spo, it's some sort of a, you know what I mean? Like you can't criticize Spo. He's perfect. Spo's not perfect. Spo knows that. I mean, Spo, in the course of all the years he's been a coach, he's made mistakes. He's learned from those mistakes. He has got to adapt with different rosters he's given, obviously, by the front office, and he has to make the most of it. I think it's fair to criticize Spo and say there are certain things that, you say to yourself, I don't think he's handled this well. I don't know how, the playing time for Terry of late is justifiable to a lot of people. He plays 40 minutes. Now, having only 9 or 10 guys available certainly impacts that. So, but I think it's okay. Like, sometimes I think we get so caught up in, like, you either have to say Spo's the best coach ever all the time or say he sucks. And it's like people are so extreme. It's like Spo doesn't suck. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA, if not the best coach. But even the best coach in the NBA is going to have his head scratching decisions and off nights. And I think Spo's not immune to that. To your question on Terry Rozier, and I think that's more important because I think that's where everybody's focused on. Terry has struggled, man. Terry has struggled all season long. And I don't know, again, I don't know if I said this 6 months ago with you guys, but I certainly made it clear to everybody who'd listen. The Heat entered the offseason and into the new season thinking Terry Rozier was going to be part 4 of a big 4 with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Terry Rozier. You guys all heard it, right? We all said it. We all reported it. Players talked about it. There's a genuine disappointment, right? That this guy just hasn't panned out to be that guy for whatever reason. And again, it doesn't have to be personal. You don't have to say Terry Rozier sucks. You don't have to say Terry Rozier is a bad guy. Terry Rozier has just struggled. It's a veteran player with an excellent resume who hasn't played up to the standards that he should. And that's frustrating 60 games into the season because they've really needed the Terry Rozier they thought they were trading for.
Definitely. And also, I think this is a big offseason for this Miami Heat, depending, however stuff goes, right? I automatically think we're locked into the play-in. I don't think we'll go down with the Bulls and stuff. But it could be either 8, 9, 9, 10, whatever the case may be. But what's your opinion? What's the future of Andrew Wiggins? Is Andrew Wiggins here to stay with us, or is he just another trade piece that potentially make another move? Because he only has 1 year left after this deal, of course. Well, 2025 he has 2 actually,
Yeah.
and then Tyler, kind of throwing 2 at you real quick. For Tyler, it's like, do you see a contract extension coming up, or is he? Tyler's a great player. I think the games he's playing are not really contribution. Like, they're not getting us wins, if that makes sense. Like, he could put up 30 a night and then the team will still lose. And that's not necessarily on Tyler. But do you still see him as a long-term piece? Is he going to get that extension with this Miami Heat team, especially with Butler gone? The future is going to be a little bit different. So, yeah.
It's a good question. I think that's where everybody's pointing to. Like, what's the future? Like, look, in the short term, you're right. I think the Heat are going to be the 7th seed. I think they're going to hold off Orlando, Atlanta, and get the 7. And all they have to do is win 1 of 2 home games in the play-in game, and you get either Cleveland or Boston, which is a tough challenge in the first round. So let's just move forward to the offseason eventually, right? The Heat have to make a move. The Heat have to make a move. I can't say it another way. Let's just it's simple that the Heat have to make a move. They can't run back this same core and expect different results as other teams in the Eastern Conference in particular continue to get better. How that happens, though, guys, is the question. It's not the old NBA where you just sign free agents and you throw money around. You have to make deals. You have to have assets. The Heat are trying to keep all their assets in place to make those deals. We know they're going to have multiple draft picks. We've already heard the Kevin Durant rumors. I mean, there's going to be other discussions as well about players that could become available that right now we're not aware of. So to answer your question, do I think Andrew Wiggins is safe? No, I don't think anybody outside of Bam and maybe Tyler. And I'm not even 100% sure Tyler is. I mean, you have to consider all options when you're going through this kind of a rebuild forward, right? The Heat never start from scratch in rebuilds. So if you don't start from scratch, that means you got to move a key part somewhere if you're going to get a star player. And look at the roster. There's only so many assets on this roster that can get you a star player. So I would say everything's on the table at this point when they eventually enter the offseason.
Will, so then what do you think about some of the young guys? I mean, like Jovic, he broke his hand. Jaime, he's not really having the best season. And I also think that's due to this, whole 5-out offense that Spo's trying to play. I just don't like the offense only because if you only have, Duncan and Tyler, who they're our best 3-point shooters, outside of that, you really don't have anyone that can shoot threes at that high level. And then also, too, we have Khalil Ware. I mean, yes, he's banged up right now, but I really do think he's going to be a solid piece going forward. But which young guy would you be okay with moving right now going into the future?
I don't think I'll be honest with you, man, I don't think any of them are untouchable. I think all of them have to be on the table at some point because, again, you can't get without giving. And I'm not saying that I'm advocating, hey, trade the young guys, trade Khalil Ware. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, but if you're going to get a key piece, if you're really going to go out and get a player to match with Bam, Tyler, both, a trio, whatever it may be, you have to pick and choose which of the young guys you're going to move and which ones are going to be assets to other teams. And I think the guys you just mentioned are all assets potentially to other teams. They're the kind of guys that if people are going to pick up the phone, the first thing they're going to say is Bam available? Hang up. Okay, all right. Tyler, what about a package? Khalil, Jaime, Nico, those names you just mentioned. Those conversations have to be had. You know, like you can't just sit here and say because they show promise that they wouldn't be considered, because again, we know this team is just not close to where the Bostons and the Clevelands and even the Knicks now, the separation that they seem to be getting in the Eastern Conference from the Heat. That's something that I don't think the Heat can just ignore, right? So to answer your question, I don't think anybody's necessarily safe. I think they all have talent and potential. I love what Khalil's shown. Nico obviously was playing well, then he gets hurt. Jaime, as you mentioned, is going through a bit of a sophomore slump, but all these guys have talent to be really good NBA players for a long time.
I'm excited that Bam has been moved back to his more comfortable position at 4 because of Khalil Ware. Am I mute? I'm good, right?
No, you're good.
You can hear me well?
You're good.
Am I good now? So anyway, Bam Adebayo. So yeah, he's moved back to his original position, which is at the 4. He seems to be more comfortable. And a lot of people were giving Bam Adebayo a ton of slack for starting off the season in a slump. Yeah. And, you know, it was probably for the first few months, he was shooting 42% from the field, which is like ridiculous. He's never shot below 51% from the field in his career. He's closer to 50% now. Since All-Star break, he's been averaging 22 points per game. He's been shooting, I think, like 57 or 58%. Yeah. 58%. So his averages have gone up. So just what are your thoughts on Bam and his resurgence moving forward?
Bam was right early in the season. Look, I asked him the question. Others asked him it well. And he got tired of hearing the questions, I think, because he said the same answers all along. And he just said it. I don't know if you guys saw, he was quoted in a couple articles. And then yesterday after the game, he told Jax, when Jax asked him, he's like, I told you guys all along, I'm going to be fine. The shots are going to start falling. I like the shots I'm taking. They're going to be there. Now, to your point, Mir, I think the move to the 4 certainly gave him a little more freedom to do some of the things that we've seen Bam do in the past, in particular in the mid-range. You know, Bam, when he's on, he's knocking down those mid-range shots, man, and knocking them down in rhythm and smooth. We're seeing that Bam again, along with the Bam that can go up, put putbacks, get alley-oop dunks, be an enforcer at the rim offensively. We've seen the mid-range game kind of develop again. So I will say this, I think it's a combination. I think moving to the 4 has helped unlock Bam a bit and give him those spots, the sweet spots that he likes to go to. But I also think he's right. I think at some point the cream rises, right? Like, he's too good of a player with too proven of a track record to all of a sudden forget how to shoot and be a 42% shooter. That's not who Bam Adebayo is. And the last 16, 17 games, I think we've seen who Bam Adebayo is, has been, and will continue to be.
And even after All-Star break, he's shooting 40% from 3 on 2.5 attempts. So that experiment kind of went wrong. Like, we saw him in the Olympics, in the preseason. Like, it looked like he really had the confidence in that shot. Yeah. Spo, there was an article, or there was some sort of report out there on Twitter saying that Spo finally is allowing Bam to shoot. So, which I thought was funny. But he's also shooting 40%, so he looks more confident there. The only thing, though, I think what I'm confused about is just the defensive rating is a little bit down. Like, the offensive rating is up, which Heat fans would be shocked to hear. Yeah. So because of those few games that we had a couple weeks ago where we scored 86, 86, and 85, which was putrid. That was putrid basketball. But offensive rating, we're 17. Last year we were 21, even up to 25 at some points in the season. But defense, our bread and butter, our calling card, we were at 5. We were top 5. Right now we're at 12. And what do you think that is? Because I thought when Khalil was inserted into the starting lineup, he's obviously a raw rookie and was trigger happy trying to block every shot, and getting out of position, not playing the best in the drop. But he's still a good rim protector, the best rim protector we have. And he allows Bam to be that free safety and help with that point of attack and the perimeter. I thought we would be better. I don't know, like, what are you seeing like with deficiencies in defense lately?
Question, because that is their bread and butter. And, when you talk about double-digit leads, no one's blown more double-digit leads in the second half of the Miami Heat. That's absurd. People talk about the struggles on offense. You're right. When you can't score, it's hard to maintain a lead. But if you play defense, you can maintain a lead. And a lot of those cases, they'd let teams go on big runs and cutting through the basket. And, it's a question that I think Eric Spoelstra has to study and figure out, because the energy, the effort seems to be there. I go back to, though, and this isn't an excuse, it's just what I've been thinking now for a few months now, as this team hasn't looked right all year. Like, the only thing they've been consistent at all year is being inconsistent, especially defense, especially on defense, where, again, that is what they're supposed to do. I think this entire season has just been so up in the air with the Jimmy stuff hanging over their head, and then it ends, then you have some injuries, and there's never been any kind of rhythm. And that's not an excuse. I mean, Look, the Heat are what they are. They're a middle of the pack team right now. You can't say otherwise. You can't argue that they're an elite team. You can't also say that they're a bad team because they're not a bad team. But when you have that kind of drop off defensively and you're a middle of the pack team, you're going to end up being a 7 or 8 seed. You're going to end up being a play-in team that's lucky if it even wins a game or two in the first round, which we saw it last year. And that's something Eric Spoelstra has to figure out. Again, when you get to the offseason, depending on what this roster is going to be, there has to be a balance. Like, I'm all for offense and I'm all for, getting to the modern game and figuring out the things you want to do with threes and space and all those things that Spo preaches. But at the same time, you can't do that and at the same time regress defensively, because that's not Miami Heat basketball.
I have a question, by the way, Will. So why, in your opinion, why does Haywood Highsmith play for 2 games and get DNPs for the rest? What's going on with that? Like, I feel like this roster is not good enough for players like him to be getting DNPs on a regular basis night. And then even Alec Burks, like if everybody's healthy, he doesn't even crack the rotation. It seems like he has to play when people are injured, and then every time he does play, he performs well. So what's the reasoning you think behind that?
It's a great question. That's one that, while I get a lot of Terry Rozier questions about why he plays and why he's getting heavy minutes to play, I should say, not why he plays. I mean, why he gets so many minutes in big spots. To me, the one that's more frustrating is Haywood Highsmith, because I think H should play all the time. I think H should be, and you look at the numbers early in the season when H was starting, they were playing better. Like, H just makes the team that's around them better. It's just he's shooting the three really well early in the season. Obviously, playing time is diminished. That has diminished a bit too. But I'm with you. And Eric Spoelstra said it the other day. He was asked about patience of that. And he says, look, I may not be getting this right. Like, I may not be getting this right. I absolutely could be making mistakes. And I may be, I'm trying to figure things out. And it is an odd spot, guys, because the Heat are in that position because they have so many guys that are similar styles, right? Veteran guys, maybe some play a little more defense, maybe some are better 3-point shooters, whatever it may be. It is hard night in and night out to just stick with one group as opposed to go in another direction, and I think H has fallen into that trap. That said, I think Haywood Highsmith has to play every game. I think Haywood Highsmith has to play every game, 18 to 25 minutes every game. I think there are going to be games where Haywood Highsmith is a defensive battle and he's got to play 30 plus minutes in a game. Like, I think he should always be playing, more so than I feel that way about, say, Terry Rozier, who, again, you expected to be the player that he's been in the past and it hasn't worked out. He's struggled. It's okay to pull it back a little bit and admit that he struggled and maybe give other opportunities elsewhere. For instance, the other night, that game in Cleveland, Davion was sitting out a bit in the fourth quarter. Terry was riding it through. I would have rather seen Alec in there get those minutes, But in hindsight, guys, media, broadcast, fans, podcasters, writers, beat writers, whatever, it's very easy to say that from the outside looking in. Eric Spoelstra's trying to make these decisions with his staff in real time, and sometimes they work. Unfortunately, this year, a lot of times they haven't.
And then also, too, I have just 2 more questions and I'm all set. Do you see the younger players playing near the end? And when I say the younger players, Kashad, Isaiah Stevens, which I thought he was going to play when everybody was injured, when he got moved up. Do you see those guys playing, or you don't think they end up playing this year? And then second question, unrealistic, realistic, just your opinion. Kevin Durant has been brought up several times. A report came out today. The Miami Heat didn't make a move for Lillard and all these other players throughout the years. Are you confident that they will make a move for Durant? Because I feel like we're linked to everybody, and maybe it's just for clicks and views and stuff like that. But why should we have faith in trading for Durant and all this other stuff if we couldn't even trade for these other players when a player said he wants to come to Miami?
Yeah, and I think, look, by the way, question 1, I don't think the young guys are going to get a lot of playing time because I just think they're going to be in that battle for positioning. Maybe if they lock into 7, they'll get some time. But I really think those guys are more of trying to continue to develop into the offseason to see if they truly have a role on this roster in the future. A couple of the young guys you mentioned. But I think, look, the Durant stuff's been going on so long that I think when Kevin Durant rumors in Miami started, my hair was still black. I didn't have any gray hair. And like all these years later, we've gone through the Durant thing about 6, 7 times, it seems like, and my hair's grayer. So it's been a long time, man. Do I think the Heat would be interested in pursuing Kevin Durant? Yeah, I think they would. I think it's clear that they love Kevin Durant. I think it's clear that they would have loved to get a guy like that at some point. Now he's getting older. What's KD? 36, I think. But he's still an elite scorer. He's still top 6 or 7 in the league in scoring. So when you look at KD, he's still an elite player. I think to your point, and I get the frustration from fans. I never tell Heat fans, like, sometimes Heat fans get a little obsessive, like, oh, Pat Riley stinks, he's washed, they don't know what they're doing. Look, they want to get these players they're chasing. Like, Damian Lillard should be a Miami Heat player, but Joe Cronin didn't want to trade him to the Miami Heat. Like, he didn't want to figure out a way with the pieces. Like, the Heat couldn't invent pieces, right? The Heat had their assets. They were offering whatever it was they were offering as a package, and the Blazers didn't want to do it. Like, that's not really on Pat Riley, but obviously not getting Lillard was a big blow. The KD sweepstakes this time around, whatever the truth was in those discussions, didn't happen. But do I think they're going to jump right back into that? I tell people all the time about Pat Riley. I'll put it simple. Pat Riley always swings for home runs. He's never trying to hit singles or doubles. And the beauty of it is when you hit a home run, everybody's happy. But the problem is sometimes singles or doubles, you can move around the bases, right? You can create something. Pat Riley doesn't like singles and doubles, man. He wants to hit home runs. And when you swing and miss and strike out and don't hit a home run, fans aren't happy. It's just the way it is.
I've been a Heat fan for 26 years, so I've seen those home runs, obviously, and I've dealt with the singles and the strikeouts and the walks. So, it's hard to get a superstar. It's like, I know the player, like in the last decade, there's been the player movement, right? So that players like Anthony Davis got to go where he wanted. He wanted to play with LeBron and Kyrie and
Lillard. I mean, but that's cut you off. But Lillard wanted to play here, and he made it damn clear through his agent, and it still didn't happen.
NBA they put out a memo basically. You can't say you only want to sign for Miami Heat, but James Harden, got away with I think a lot worse, which is unfortunate. But speaking of Heat fans, just in general and on Twitter, because you mentioned. And I hate the fans that say that, like, Pat Riley's asleep, he's washed. Pat Riley's he's the godfather. Like, he is very lucid. He's obviously very aware, and it's hard to run a business. And we have 3 championships. 35% of the NBA, organizations don't have a single ring. So the fact that we have 3 makes us the 5th franchise with the 5th most championships for any franchise, right? And the top 2 are the Lakers and Celtics, obviously. And, we're still not too far from the Spurs and from the Warriors. So, but a lot of Heat fans have been wanting to tank, and that's not on my vocabulary. And they want us to tank because if we don't make the playoffs, and not like a traditional tank, but maybe losing the play-in on purpose, perhaps we're sitting Tyler and Bam, so we're guaranteed to be in the 9th, 10th spot versus the 7th and 8th. But fans want us to lose because if we lose and don't make the playoffs, we get our first-round pick back from the OKC Thunder. So we would get 2 picks because the Warriors are obviously their pick is top 10 lottery protected, and they're playing great. Obviously, what are they 8-1, 9-1 since Jimmy's been on there? So my question to you is, Will, would you rather have 2 picks and the Heat not make the playoffs? This is personal, obviously. Would you have them not make the playoffs so we have 2 picks, which we could use to potentially we're not going to give maybe 2 to Kevin Durant, but to trade for a future player? Mm-hmm. Or would you rather have the 1 pick from the Warriors, which is pretty much guaranteed, and have the 2 picks that we owe to the Thunder and Hornets protected? Because people forget that if we don't make the playoffs, those picks are going to be unprotected. So if we become bad the next 2 seasons, we won't get a lottery pick. So what are your thoughts on that?
I honestly, when it comes to picks and tanking and draft and all that stuff, I think because of the Heat's track record in drafting, it doesn't bother me that much. I think, look, if you were in a perfect world, if the Heat were positioned to get a top 5 pick or get, go be in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, yeah, hell yeah. I'd rather want that than make the playoffs and lose in the first round. But the reality is that's not the case, and the way the NBA works. They're, whether you have a pick, 2 picks, whatever it may be, the Heat have proven, look at their core. Look at the young guys we just talked about. Look at their stars. I mean, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and then Jaime, Nico, Khalil, all these guys were drafted in the teens. None of those guys were top 5 picks, and it goes to show Adam Simon, Andy Ellisberg, Pat Riley, the core there of people that are behind the scenes making decisions, the knowledge that they have of drafting. So to answer the question the simplest ways, I really don't care. I don't. As a fan, I don't. If you tell me you get a top 5 pick, then heck yeah, I care. But whether they pick 9th or 12th or 15th, it doesn't really bother me. I want to see them play well and finish the season strong. And look, this stuff happens organically. The Heat never tank, will not tank. It's not going to happen. But if they're not good enough, it's not going to matter if they're trying to tank or not. They're not going to go very far. They may not make the playoffs, or they'll be one and done in the postseason, or they'll lose a playing game. So I think based on that, it doesn't bother me as much because I think this season we can kind of see where it's going, unfortunately, the way they're playing.
Well, Will, once again, thank you for coming on the show. Where can the people find your work?
Always watch me, obviously, during Heat broadcast on FanDuel Sports Network for the remainder of the 20 games, hopefully in the playoffs, and then on Channel 10 for those that live in South Florida, WPLG. And then you guys, we all chat on social media anytime on Twitter, X, whatever, at my name, at Will Manso. So always find me there.
Guys, make sure that you guys like, share, comment, subscribe. And once again, Will, thank you for coming on the show.
Always my pleasure, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks again, Will. Appreciate it.